sometimes in order to get a campaign going that could be used globally, is you just don't use any words. You just show them.
There it is.
You just show them.
Interesting.
You
Now,
don't
is that through
need all.
video? Is that through
Yeah, you
imagery?
do it in
Okay.
video form. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? You show them. We're hiring for people to do this. Let me show you what that looks like. Put some
Mm-hmm.
fancy music behind it. Put some words on a screen that can be
Uh-huh.
switched out to different languages so that people can read it in the language that they speak. You
Mm,
blast it out there.
look at that.
It does more than what you think that it could do.
All right, y'all. We're here. We've got one of my favorite employer branders who I watch from afar. She is a content queen, and I think one of the most versatile employer branders that I've met. And I'm happy to have her here for Employer Branding Unfiltered. Keisha Fowler, welcome.
Thank you. I'm happy to be here.
Absolutely,
Exciting.
absolutely. I'm glad that we got schedules to flex like Simone Biles and get us here to be, post Olympic shout out there. Um,
Yeah.
but yeah. Look, what's been going on? How have you been? How was your summer?
Summer's, I mean, I've been great. Busy time in the employer branding space.
Yeah.
Busy time at home,
Mm,
getting kids out of the house, helping kids get transitioned. It's just a fun time.
life is moving
Yeah.
rapidly in many
Never a dull
spaces.
moment over at our place.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. Look, I mean, I think back to school is one thing, going to school when it's like college
Yeah,
and that transition is crazy. But then through it all, we still have to show up and put on
we
for
do.
our various organizations. And so I'm excited to talk to you about all things EB, your journey. So I think the best place to probably start is to ask you the question that I ask all guests of Employer Branding Unfiltered. And that is, when did you first fall in love with employer branding?
Yeah. Um, I wouldn't say I fell in love, but in strong like. Um,
You're still dating? Is that what I'm hearing?
yeah, we're still figuring things out. We want to see where this
Okay.
goes. Yeah, just I hate you know what I absolutely hate is I hate
Yeah.
when you're in a room full of people and they go, how'd you get into this? And they go, oh, I just kind of lucked into
I
it.
fell into
And
it.
it's like, that's not what you did. That's your privilege that actually got
Ooh,
you here
s-
because
say
there's
it.
nothing really that prepares you for this.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I actually applied for a role that had a writing background. So that's how I got into it.
Okay.
Previous organization was looking for someone with good writing skills. A degree in English was one of the requirements, and I was like, I got that. I can write. I wrote blogs when my kids were growing up. Homeschooled my kids for a long time, so I knew like I can do this. I got that. My kids when we were homeschooling, one of their um, one of their assignments was like creating a YouTube channel and coming up with the content and the scripts and things like that for it, so that they could learn engineering, how to mesh things together. And so that was their thing. And at the end of the year, we just kind of looked back at the videos that they shot. So I knew that I had kind of like the background that they were looking for. I could write, had the degree, had the experience that they were looking for. So that's how I got into it. It wasn't something that I lucked into like most people will say. It was something that I had been working at previously, and this was a way to kind of take those transferable skills and make them into something bigger, help an organization to kind of grow their brands, grow their
Yeah.
names, because I had done that previously for me and the kids.
So I love that. First of all, I'm gonna call out that we share something in common, which I think we got we shared with each other when we first met at a talent brand summit in
Yeah.
Chicago a few years back. But yes, you are a alumni homeschool mom. My wife just, let's say, graduated this year. We just sent our kids back into schools after 4 years of homeschooling. So that unto itself is a
Check
whole
in on her. I'm sure she's
conversation.
sad about that.
I didn't see tears today. I thought I might. I thought I might, but I think the prep and the build up was all the time for the sorrow. But now
Yeah.
it's there in the mix, and we just sent them off today. But that I love hearing the transferable skills, and like many of us who've gotten in this space, we didn't go to school for employer branding or recruitment
Right.
marketing, right? But we had a skill set that was of value to the, let's say, talent acquisition and recruitment space that they know they needed but did not have
Yep.
within that function. So I love that. So you brought your writing skills, your ability to wrangle wrangle people together around things through homeschooling,
Yeah.
to now tell the stories of large scale employers for the purpose of attraction, engagement, and
Yeah.
retention. Okay, I love it. So not in love, strong like.
All like.
We're going to reference or revisit this dating situation as it relates to employer brand in just a bit. So tell me a bit, I guess, from an experience perspective. Now, you've built employer brands from scratch. You've walked into scenarios where they had some things here, but you had to tighten them up, I'm sure. Done the EVP research, created or crafted the brand activation strategies and all that. Out of all of that, where did you do this from within the organization? Does EB sit within TA for you, or is it in marketing or comms? What's the org dynamic?
So, in both instances, in both two different companies, they've always sat in talent acquisition. So part of HR. Both of them always, neither one of them in comms, which I thought was interesting.
Interesting. Yeah.
But talent acquisition in both of them. First organization that I worked for, it was called TAG, Talent Acquisition Group. Now
Oh,
this one is GTA, Global
global
Talent
talent.
Acquisition. So it's the same acronym, just it's very funny how each company just recycles, but both of them in talent acquisition
Yeah. How do you
under
feel
the
about
HR.
that?
I'm like, y'all, it's almost like and one of my pet peeves is like they all think that everybody is doing something completely different. We're all doing the same thing. Like
Man,
you're
speak about it.
it's
Speak
not
about it.
different. We're all doing the same thing. Why do we need so many different names to be called one thing? And I think it's just like a method of just trying to confuse us in the industry who actually know what we're doing and can say, I bring this to this organization, pay me accordingly.
Right, right. And it seems so simple, right? Like the skill sets are primarily the same that we're bringing to this work. The work outcomes and the intentions of the work are pretty much consistent no matter where you go. So why is it that there's still such a fragmentation across companies? And what I found, and through speaking to people much more brilliant than myself, is that I think there's still a lot of education required for the leadership level in understanding this work. How are you dealing with that? Because I think that there's still a lot to be desired in terms of knowing what it is that we're doing, but then also having the right expectations for what we do. How are you navigating that?
The kids will lead us. The kids will tell us which way to go.
Hey,
Like
there it
there's
is.
no way around it. Like this upcoming generation is the biggest generation. They know how to do things right, and all we have to do is pay attention and take those learnings back to our companies and say, this is what is working. And why do we need to reinvent the wheel if someone has already done it and has seen success in it? So, what I'm doing is I'm looking to my younger colleagues, my own kids, what's happening. I don't I My husband's a teacher, and we just laugh because we don't know much about being young, but when you're a teacher of high school kids, they teach you exactly what you need. And if we my thought process is, as we get older, our methods tend to be older as well, but we need to keep younger people around so that we can keep that youth about us. So we're
Mm,
never always behind the wheel, but at least we can be on par with it. We'll never be in front of it because it changes so much.
that's
Like
right.
Riz, short for charisma. Like who thinks about that? You know what I mean?
Oh
Like
yeah, Skibbity
like
Toilet Ohio Sigma. Yeah, like we're it's a whole language that we
it really
that I
is.
don't understand.
And I know that corporate America is just like, we are what we are and we don't want to change ourselves. But at some point, you will have to accommodate the people that you are trying to get into this company, to get into your company.
Yeah.
So organizations can tout, we want top talent, we want top talent, we want top talent. But does top talent want you?
Ooh, there's the
And how are
dating
you
reference.
attracting them to get to you? Like, what are you offering them
Yeah.
to make yourself stand out in order to bring in that talent that you want to have to push your company forward?
Yeah. I want to stick with that one for a second. What are you offering them? What's attractive about you? Why should they choose you? Do you, I mean, look, you've seen enough of employer branding content out there. Is anybody saying anything different?
Nobody.
Okay.
No,
So,
everybody's company is the best company to work for. Everybody has the best people. Everybody has the best perks.
culture
I
and
mean,
perks,
you know what
yeah.
I mean? Unless somebody is saying, let me hand you over thousands of dollars of stock in your initial, like you're saying all the same things. There's nothing that is differentiating
Yeah. Yes.
what our efforts are from the next company's efforts.
So then that leads us to, I think, a lot of us in this space is that existential question of, so how do we move it forward? How do we create differentiation in this sea of sameness where everybody's apparently so amazing that they have zero attrition because nobody leaves, and I don't even know why we're trying to attract you because we're so great. What do you do different? I have a theory on this, but I want to hear your perspective on what do you think needs to change in order for employer brand to evolve to a space where not everybody's saying the same thing.
Who tells the best story?
Say
Whose story is
more.
better? Who tells the better story? Like, if
Okay.
everybody's staying, nobody's leaving, your company is the best. Like, what what I tell people is that companies will never say what's bad about them, right? They're never going to say, we work you so hard to where you feel like you have no work-life balance. They're never going to say, oh, we give you unlimited PTO, but we don't expect you to use it. Because if you actually do use it, you'll come back and feel so behind that you'll never want to do it again, right? So nobody's ever going to say that. So my thought process is, how are you treating your employees, and how are they talking about you?
Okay.
So can your employees go out and tell a good story about you, or will your own employees be like, yeah, I'm not messing with them, like, I'm only here for the cat, you know what I mean? Like, I'm
Sure.
just here so I don't get fined, right? Like,
Right. Or the
like,
check is good and I'm not
yeah.
trying to mess that up.
um
So, yeah.
I one of my colleagues, she was I interviewed her for a role. She got the role. She was the best one for the role.
Hmm.
She'd been trying to get with the company for a long time because she's heard such great things about the company. She just loves the company, and her mom called the company the Golden Handcuff.
Oh, I haven't heard that since the late 90s, early
Yeah,
2000s.
they're the Golden Handcuffs. This company is considered the Golden Handcuffs because, like, once you get in, you're in, right? You can make so many different career path move changes. You could be there for 20 years and never do the same thing twice. And so even if this person has never worked at this place, to call something a golden handcuff, is that a good thing? Is that a bad thing? Like, who's, you know, whose story is being told here?
Yeah.
Because the company will never call itself a golden handcuff, right?
Not unless they have a really good narrative around that. And
Right.
I don't see how handcuffs in any scenario is probably
In
going to be
any
spun
scenario
well.
would be great,
Not
right?
a good look.
The kidnap
Golden
your
or
kid here.
otherwise.
Yeah, like so
Yeah.
it's who has the better story, who is telling the better story.
So it's not necessarily what you're saying. It's how you're saying it
Yeah, and the people who's saying it, who
and
you're
who's
getting to
telling
say
the
it.
story.
Yeah, who's
Okay.
telling it?
I could rock with that. And I think that that is probably there's a lot of open space for how to tell similar
Hmm.
stories, depending on who's telling the story, to your very point. I also think, and you mentioned it, that companies are never going to talk bad about themselves, right?
Yeah.
And I think there's a space for that. And one of the things that we say is that we believe that transparency is the new authenticity, and I think directly related to your earlier statement, the kids will tell us, right?
Hmm.
They want transparency because guess what? They're going to find out anyway. These
Yeah.
kids, they don't rely on what you're saying about you to formulate their opinion. Like they'll take some of that into consideration, but they're going to hit like 12 to 18 different touch points to figure out
Yeah.
if it triangulates to what you're saying. And they want to know the real. They want to know if this is a grindhouse, if I'm going to work, 18 hours or working on weekends trying to keep pace because that's the expectation or the unspoken expectation of your culture. How you tell that story, I think, is where the art and the science of employer branding meet, because it's better to, I think, give people what they need to know up front so that
Yeah.
they can make an informed decision and opt out if it's not their jam, versus you bringing them in under false pretense. They get here 6, 8 months or less to find out this isn't what you sold me.
Yeah. And the kids these days, they don't mind quitting.
They'll quit in a heartbeat.
They
Like
will.
they'll quit and not even leave the job.
Yeah.
That's a whole different level of quitting. Like
They'll quit.
they just check out
Yeah. They're
and
just
still
like,
get
ah, it's
paid.
not worth it. Yeah. I mean, and it's like, how are you going to how are you keeping that? You know what I mean? Because times have changed. It's not like our parents where, they stayed at a company for 30, 40 years because it was a good company, because their checks came on time. You know what I mean? And they made a life. I don't want to be stressed at work.
Yeah.
I don't want to take that stress home with me. I want to be able to do a job, do it well, be compensated for it, be awarded for it, and be recognized for it
Mm-hmm.
so that I can continue doing a great job because somebody somewhere appreciates it.
Yeah.
Even if it's like a drop in the bucket, you know what I mean? Especially if you're at a large corporation, small corporation, everybody wants to feel like they're valued, right? So
Mm-hmm.
if I'm coming to work and I'm giving everything and there's no value, there's no payoff for me, why am I here? So again, it's whose story is being told,
Yeah.
because I'm not, when I was looking to transition over into a new company, because I did not feel valued in my
Mm-hmm.
previous role. Every time I tried to move up, it was, you did great in the interviews. We have no feedback for you. It just didn't work out.
Make that make
And then
sense.
it's, yeah. So if you have no constructive criticism for how I can improve so that I can get a role, then why am I still here? Like, and then it's like, when I talk to somebody and I'm just like, hey, how can I get ahead? How can I move? We talk about the corporate ladder. How can
Mm-hmm.
I move up this invisible ladder
Right.
that doesn't seem like it's being pulled down for me from the attic, right? And then it's just like, you're a great, fantastic person. You're a great leader. It's just not your time.
Mm.
But my numbers are showing consistently
Yeah.
that what I'm doing is working. You have no complaints about my job, the work that I'm
Mm-hmm.
contributing, and yet you want to give me a 3% increase and then tell me that I'm not able to move up because Susie over here has 20 years and we're going to give her seniority even though she's not doing anything
Mm-hmm.
with the
Mm-hmm.
background that relates to this role, but we're just going to give it to that. So when I was in the process of looking for a new role because I didn't feel valued. I didn't feel like they appreciated any of my contributions. And it's very funny because when I did leave the company, they still left my contributions up on their website.
Oop. Yeah, that's how that goes.
My contributions are still to this day up on their website, but they didn't see
Damn.
value enough in me to promote me or move me up. And so when it's time to
Oof.
look for another company, I hear everything that y'all are telling me, but I'm
Mm-hmm.
digging deeper. I'm like the kids. I'm like, I want to know. I'm looking for people who actually work there. Are you
Yeah.
sharing what's going on at your job or are you just mute about it? And that's just what you see in your LinkedIn profile is that you just work there and you don't have anything to say about it. Everything that you talk about is either personal or inspirational, and it's talking about, turning a page or turning a chapter or not letting people get you down. I'm like, ma'am, is that subliminal? Like, do you not,
Blink twice if you need help.
yes, like, are you know what I mean? Like, what's
Yeah.
going on here? Because if I'm looking and I can't find anything about what you do, now I'm thinking like, that's not really a company that I want to work for. Because if you can't say, hey, I got this great, I got this award at work because I did great. Like if you can't even tell me that on a
Mm-hmm.
platform that is designed specifically for that,
Mm.
I don't want to come work at your company.
Mm. Look, there's a lot that you just said to unpack. And I
Like
think,
you can't even brag about your own job.
which is telling, and maybe you don't feel empowered to, maybe you don't feel like you are, that you have the voice to do that, right? Because you're not an authorized spokesperson or a, tapped ambassador, as it were. But also, in the age of, I think, social and people, I think we're at a point where people feel more comfortable speaking about their experience. And I won't say all people, but I'll say a lot more people than when I first got into the game, are more empowered to talk about the goods and the bads, right? But what I don't see, and it's interesting, your experience in leaving some place where you didn't feel valued and trying to go to a place, and how do you get those signals of if they will value me? And you're looking at the other employees, and are they sharing how they feel valued? Do you see expressions or examples on the career site or on the social channels of the company where they are valuing their employees? That's huge for employer brand. But I wonder, and I think it's worth exploration, like how do we tell the story of the person who is at the organization doing phenomenal work, performing at the height of performance metrics, and still not getting that move up, that recognition in both compensation, to elevation and title and so forth? How do we tell that in an employer brand story that can actually be both true, honest, and positive for the brand? Is it possible? Or is
I,
that a
you know,
dream?
I don't know if it is possible. I don't know. I
Okay.
don't know because I will say in my time at the company that I'm working at right now,
Yeah.
every year when, annual reviews come around and, we know that around February, folks will be promoted or not promoted. Um, I think having just that transparency, right? If there are 40,000 people at this company, you cannot expect 40,000 people to all get promoted, right?
No,
It's
no.
just not going to happen. You can be doing spectacular work,
Sure.
but if you are in a group business unit, a department that has 80 people, and the way that the promotions are set up is that only 10% of those people can be promoted, then you need to be very clear about that to everybody so that you know
Mm.
that I've only been here for a year. I've only been here for 2 years. You know what I mean? I'm not in line for promotion just yet. I can be doing fantastic work, but it's just still just not my time.
Hmm.
Because if you have 80 people and only 8 of those 80 people can be promoted. Please do not bring Susie again, who's been here for 5 years, who does not work as hard as I do, into a promotion talk when I've been here for 2 years and have exceeded Susie's work ethic, right? And
Sure,
I think
sure.
we talked about this a little bit when we were in Chicago about how mediocre some people are allowed to be, where others have to excel in the same role just to be seen. And so that's when that transparency comes in. Because if I can be mediocre and do my job and still be promoted, listen, I'm about to be mediocre as hell, right? Like I'm about to do as much,
Mediocre
just a,
is my goal at that
that is
point.
my goal, right? Like
Right, right.
I'm a stick with it because if I go ahead, then you think that you can add more things to it. But if I can be mediocre like Susie over here and be promoted, because there's no transparency about how promotions are given.
And that's it. I think that that is a huge point, right? Coming out of this, are companies willing to be transparent on how they do promotions? And look, there's that's a slippery slope in the sense that one, you would have to have a very well defined criteria for promotion and be honest about, not even honest, be accountable to enforcing that, as it were, right? Like if
Yeah.
this is the criteria and you've met the criteria, then promotion happens. Unfortunately, in the real world that we are in,
There's that little
that doesn't,
invisible number that they won't tell you that can be promoted and
the
you're
force
upset.
rank choices for sure. So
Yeah.
force rank distribution and calibrations, and oh, by the way, it's not just on your performance. That's a piece of it. Who knows you? What do they know about you? How much value have you contributed to them, and how have you made them look? And there's a whole set of factors that they would never put on paper, because if they did,
People would be pissed.
and people would be promoted accordingly, right?
Yeah.
So now there's no gray area. I think it speaks to a bigger challenge, and one that I think we as employer branding practitioners are kind of in a jam with, is that the expectations of the talent market and the willingness of employers to be transparent are not aligned, right?
No.
So
No.
how can then we as people who are shaping narratives, perceptions of the brands that we are stewards of, sell a narrative that we know isn't 100% true and transparent, but it does accentuate some of the positives, some of the culture, some of the people and the stories enough to get people in, right? There's a cognitive dissonance, I think, required to be an employer brand
Yeah.
practitioner, right?
Yeah.
Especially when you yourself might have gone through some things that you're like, I don't know if what I'm putting out there is aligned with my own experience, let alone the broader organization.
And in this situation, you have to do your work as an employer brander, right?
Yeah,
You have to be able to know, like, all right, people need jobs.
they do that. Yep.
We need to be able to hire those people who need the jobs, who match the skill set that we're looking for. Then you also have to be able to tell people what they're looking for. So my entire thing as a person who tells the story of a company as, what I do for a living is to make sure that what I'm telling them is what they're looking for, right? So as a job seeker, I'm looking for work life balance, right? I want to hear how you're going to give me that work life balance. I want to hear how much you can pay me. Be transparent. How much are you going to pay me? And if you can't be transparent about that, which a lot of companies refuse to do, then talk to me about the culture. Because if I'm not going to be paid what I'm worth, at least I better be happy going in there, right? Are there going to
But
be people that look like me that I can relate to, that I can talk to, that we can bounce ideas off of? Or am I constantly the only black person in the room making me feel uncomfortable?
right. And if the answer to that is no, then you now have enough information to say, okay, well, then I'm not going to apply.
Correct.
Right.
Give the people what they're looking for.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think be honest when you don't have it.
Be honest when you
That's
don't have
the
it.
that's the extension, right? So we get to give the people what they're looking for, but we haven't gotten to, but also say when you don't have it so that they can move on and you can move on,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Like, because, and that gets into it's a perfect segue into the conversation around EB versus recruitment marketing, and they're very different intents and outcomes. so, so
People always like try to lump them together.
say more, talk
It's
about it.
maddening, isn't it? It's
A
like
little bit.
employer branding is the company. Like that's what the company thinks of themselves. That's what the company thinks that you think of them, right? That's their brand. They're never going to, in their branding, tell you we suck as an employer, but please still apply.
Because we have some things that we need to get done, and we need you to get those
Yeah.
things done. So,
Yeah.
okay,
And then
all
recruitment
right,
marketing is just completely different. It's
yeah,
it's the people here telling you why you should come work here, right? It's the what we can offer you. But and then I think that a lot of people, like my husband, he went on an interview a while back, and he really went into that interview thinking like I'm interviewing you too.
oh yeah,
And
oh yeah,
so he got to the interview portion where it's like, do you have any questions for us? And he says, yes. If I'm trying to transition into a new industry that I've never worked in before, how do you, as a leader, coach me through this transition? How do you make sure that I'm meeting the metrics that you're going to be setting out for me if I am new and I am still learning? Like, what is the learning process, and how are you going to coach me to be the best?
it's great
They could not
questions.
answer that question. He was like, I ain't working for you. That was it. That literally
And
was it.
yeah, that's
He said if
interesting.
they had given it, like if he got an offer from that company, but they could see that it wasn't mutual, if he had gotten, he would have turned him down. He's just like, because how would it have worked if I got in there? I'm new. I don't really know what I'm doing. It's a transition, so it's transferable skills that are being moved into this new area, and nobody can coach me through it. I don't want that.
There we
I can
go.
hear you.
There we go. I'll edit that part. But yeah, if he'd have got in there, like, if he'd have got in there, that could have been disastrous and a massive waste of time.
Yeah,
You know,
that's a waste of time.
it's interesting in the sense that from the branding element of packaging the narrative and the aesthetic of who we are, hopefully defined by some research. And then the recruitment marketing, right? The dissemination, the distribution of not only that content, but the job opportunities that should be aligned to that content. I think that there's still a massive disconnect between what those two functions are supposed to do. And even, I think even sitting in talent acquisition furthers that disconnect, right? Because we sit in there looking, we're in TA. A recruiter's prime directive is to secure talent, to acquire talent at the lowest price possible to achieve the aims and the requirements of the work of the organization. We are supposed to now craft the perception of the organization to make it attractive and appealing for people to want to even consider it as a place that they want to work. The challenge is that our outcomes become measured by the success of recruitment when branding isn't a conversion tactic, right? It's a awareness tactic. It's a emotional connection. It's resonance. It's relevance. Like none of that is butt in seat. If anything, it's just defining the seat for butt to be in and making it appealing. You know what I mean? So I don't know. I think I wonder what the connection or the disconnect How do we bridge that gap in understanding? Oh,
I'm here.
there we go. All right. So I don't know where. How do we bridge that gap in understanding for leaders in TA, CHROs, CMOs, whomever?
They have to be willing to be accepted, to be receptive of trying new things.
Yeah.
I,
Yeah.
I
Yeah. And
that's
I think
you
that
know
that's true.
I think
Yeah.
that
So the budgets then.
be,
Oh, go ahead.
no, go ahead.
Yeah. Yeah. I was only gonna say that the I've seen scenarios where you have, let's say, a chief HR officer who is super dialed into and understands employer brand, why we need it, what its outcomes are, and how that relates to recruitment marketing. And then I've seen the opposite, whether it's CHRO, even the TA leader themselves, where this role might roll up to. What I find though is that regardless of the level of understanding, they know that there's a business objective tied to this work, right? Whatever that business objective is. Some might think that it's more applicants, some might think it's more hires, some might know that it's more awareness from an employer brand perspective. But from a budget perspective, how I think the amount of dollars allocated towards the work that we do is directly proportional to the understanding of the leaders who are allocating that budget.
I have to say that I've been very fortunate in the role that I'm in now, where the leadership understands the value and what we bring
Okay.
to that business unit. So it works well. The budget works well. They know that
Oh,
this is what we need. We could show, we can all show like numbers to prove like this is actually working, and we can take those numbers and we can take those dollars. Here's the dollars that we used. Here is where that was allocated, and here are the results. Right? Everybody wants
yeah.
an ROI. Like what is it? You know what I mean? I mean,
Right.
they throw out these KPIs, ROIs. You know what I mean? Like what they want to know what they're spending the money on. Right? Is it worth it?
Absolutely.
Should we
Yeah.
include it? You know what I mean? But I think that when you get higher people higher up who know that this is what they need in order to drive their brand forward, but they still don't want to spend the money, they're just ruining their own company, making it harder, excuse me, for everybody else, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Because how am I supposed to bring in top talent if you give me $10?
Not $10. Yeah. Yeah. So how
Like there's not much I
look
can get with $10, and so you're getting what you're paying for, right? And
how
then your
about that?
attrition goes down. People are not happy because I gave them a $10 budget. You gave me a $10 budget. This is what I got in. Like you're not getting the top talent if you're not shelling out the funds. And I'm
That's
not
right.
saying make the budget unlimited, but make it reasonable so that we can do what we're doing.
I like unlimited though. I
Me too.
think it's not reasonable, but look, this is spot on, and I hear countless employer brand leaders who are asked to do
Excuse me.
Ferrari level employer branding on Honda Civic level budgets, and then get vilified because you didn't. How many hires did we get out of that campaign? And I'm like,
Here's
wait,
here's
what?
a $5,000 budget.
Yeah,
We need at
yeah.
least 300 hires or 300 applications on. And I'm like, where are you getting these people? Where are they coming from? Are they coming from thin air? Like, I think the problem, and this is with every like employer branding, everybody thinks that their brand is stronger than it actually is.
That's a word. That is a word. Yes, say more, please.
Everybody thinks that their brand is a lot stronger than it actually is, and that people should be throwing themselves at the opportunity to be
Oh
even
yeah.
able to like apply to work here. Like I worked at one employer, I'm going to leave them out. I don't want to bust their bubble or anything, but uh, Fortune number whatever they love to call themselves. We have all this, we have this, and they tout that they're the best, right? But
Sure.
then at the same time they go, we only accept like 3% of the applicants.
Oh. Oh. Okay.
Like folks can get into Harvard easier than they can get in through your hiring practices.
Like Harvard, I
That's
think, has a
not,
6%
yeah.
acceptance rate at least. Like, damn, are you better than Harvard? Is this what you're telling me? Wow.
Exactly. Are
Wow.
you better than Harvard, but like you're not paying your employees well enough? There's
Wow.
no room to move up in the company. It's who
Hmm.
you know and how long you've been there. But you're touting we have a woman CEO and we have this and we have that and we have one black person in the C-suite. So that makes us great,
We're
right?
diverse. We're diverse. We've achieved it.
Totally
We did
diverse.
it. We did the thing.
You should be
Look,
throwing yourselves to come work here.
yeah.
That doesn't work. Not everybody will look at that brand and automatically think, damn, I'd love to go work for them. You know what I mean?
I, I think that is especially true with legacy companies, right? Companies
Yeah.
who've been around for 100-year plus, or, they have this prestige about them because of their tenure or, age and so forth. And maybe not even just those. It's the ones with the big consumer brands who think the same thing. Where, I mean, I've asked people, like, yeah, name, your favorite brand that you buy from all the time or that you hold in high esteem because of their product. But do you know what it's like to work there? And
That
most people have no clue.
that's what I
And
always say.
yeah, and so you get this halo effect of great consumer brand, but your employer brand could be the complete opposite. Let your
Can you
employees tell
imagine?
it.
Like I had one coworker who left to go work for a company that shall not be named,
Mm-hmm.
um, because they're such a large company. But like the internal chatter about working there is horrible.
That's
The
right.
internal chatter about working there is horrible. It's like it's cutthroat. It's like dog eat
Mm-hmm.
dog inside that company. But
Yeah.
you're leaving to go work at a company that you don't know. You absolutely know. No, you absolutely know. It's not that you don't know. You absolutely know. But you're gonna, yes,
Just
I'm gonna be
cover
the
your eyes.
change, right? It's like it's
Right.
like the girlfriend whose boyfriend won't change, but she thinks that she's
I
gonna
could
be the
fix
one
him.
to change him,
I could
right? Like
fix
I
him.
can, ma'am, he's not gonna change. That is exactly what it is going into it. Like this company is not gonna change. They have a trash reputation for how they treat their employees, but you're going to be the one to go in and affect change company wide to make it better, right? And then you're laid off within 3 years. Surprise, surprise. Like,
Surprise.
what are we doing?
I love that meme, by the way. Surprise, surprise.
It's
That cracks me
like,
up. But you're so right. And I think it's so funny how that all still connects back to brand, right? It's the brand that will make you go to this company knowing full well they are a grindhouse and will eat your soul, keep you there, but it's great on your resume.
it's great on your resume, right?
Like that's crazy to me. Like I'm gonna go there because the brand is so strong for my resume that I will subject myself to a shitty lived experience. That's crazy.
And people
Phew.
sign up, like they line
Like
up to do
like
it.
line up. Like these are the companies that are lined up around the conference center or the expo floor for
And they're like the best
hours.
thing ever, right? They did no outreach, they did no
Nah,
recruiting efforts. It's
they
just
just
oh,
showed
we're
up.
gonna skate by on our names because this is who we are, and people are gonna flock to us.
Yeah.
And
Yes. Yes. And then for people who are doing employer brand at not those companies have to do like everything to
yeah,
be to number one compete with the awareness, compete for the
yeah,
awareness, the attention, and then sell all of the things to showcase how we're just like that company. We're better than that company, but nobody knows.
yeah.
But yet the line is super scarce at our
And
our
that's why I
booth.
said no one's doing anything different. Everybody's doing the same things.
Oh, that's fascinating. That's a whole case study unto itself, I think. Like the employer brands of great consumer brand companies that are absolutely trash.
Absolutely trash. That people will like leave their really good paying jobs. And
just for
there's
the
no such thing as
prestige.
job
Yeah.
security. You know what I mean? There is no such
No.
thing. Not here in America. Um, I mean, go to Italy, you can keep your job forever and ever, and they can't kick you out, right?
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Yep.
but there's no job security, but you're willing to throw it all away just to say I worked for X company, even though they drove me mad, had me, going crazy, and wouldn't even pay for my therapy.
Literally.
Or give
Literally
me
going
three free
crazy.
sessions and feel like that I should be done and everything else is out of pocket.
Yeah, which is when you tout your EAP, your employee assistance programs as part of your brand, because you're
That's
going to
it.
need it when you come work
Gonna
here.
need it.
Look, I think there's something to be said about that. You know, if we have a really active EAP, and it's like, really, do your employees really need to use this a lot?
Do
Red
you need
flags,
them?
red flags. Speaking of Italy, and sort of the global nature, I know that you work in global function
Yeah.
to espouse an employer brand that has to resonate around the world. No easy feat. For those of you who are new to this space or learning about it, trying to express one employer brand for 120 countries around the world, yeah, it's not easy. How are you working through that, and how have you found success, I'll say, in localizing for regional nuance or cultural nuance in certain markets, but still maintaining sort of that core brand?
It's a lot of cross-functional work. A lot of cross-functional work, right?
Mm-hmm.
Um, and in the industry that I'm in, it's just you have. I worked on a campaign because we're hiring for roles at manufacturing roles, right? And it's not
Mm-hmm.
just in America. It's at all of our manufacturing plants, right? So my job is pretty tricky because it's like, how can I come up with a campaign that will resonate not only with the US, but can also be used around the world, right? And then the trick with that is people always want to see themselves doing the job, right? Because you're not going to apply for something if you don't see somebody that looks like you doing it, right? Because, like I said, corporate America, I don't know if I said, but it's vicious. You wear down when you're the only other in the
Sure,
room, right?
that's right.
It starts to make you feel like you shouldn't be there, even though you've probably earned every bit of the reason why you are there. There's still people looking at you like, you know, got
She's
that
a
a lot when
DEI hire. Yeah,
yeah,
those
got that
those.
a lot when I was like, how did you get
How
in
are you
here? Well,
here?
you
Oh my
look,
God, yes.
yeah, you look so young. Do you know what you're actually doing? You know what I mean? Like, because I'm not a 60-year-old woman, right? Like,
Right, right, right.
so
Yeah.
every day I'm trying to figure out like ways, and I've learned that sometimes in order to get a campaign going that could be used globally, is you just don't use any words. You just show them.
There it is.
You just show them.
Interesting.
You
Now,
don't
is that through
need all.
video? Is that through
Yeah, you
imagery?
do it in
Okay.
video form. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? You show them. We're hiring for people to do this. Let me show you what that looks like. Put some
Mm-hmm.
fancy music behind it. Put some words on a screen that can be
Uh-huh.
switched out to different languages so that people can read it in the language that they speak. You
Mm,
blast it out there.
look at that.
It does more than what you think that it could do.
Hmm.
I believe in fancy campaigns. I believe in throwing a bunch of money at things. You know what I mean? But sometimes simple works best because not everybody is going to be able to be flashy. Not everybody
Hmm.
wants flashy. Sometimes people just want to know, like, you got a job open for me? Can I read the job description? Does it sound
Hmm.
like something I can do? And then can I apply for it?
That's true. That's true. Yeah, everybody's courtship looks different around the world. And
Yeah.
I've learned that, and deploying brands for 120, 110 country respectively, it's you can't just lift and shift what you made in the US and then put it in Romania, right?
No.
And expect that it's going to be received the same way. And so, some elements of your brand messaging needs to be reduced. It needs to be altered to fit the cultural nuance or the patina of that market. Coming in with some flowery, rosy, highly aspirational brand messaging, which might work great in San Francisco.
Right.
You might need to drill this down if you're going into Moscow and just get to the get to the fucking point. Like,
Get to the point, right?
here's the
Like, don't be
job,
around.
here's your opportunity, apply, right? Like, but you have to have people in those markets to help you navigate that. And I think that's something that's so lost in our space is that we oftentimes don't have a counterpart that does what we do in the countries that we support.
Can we get that
How much
going?
therapy? Yeah, how much therapy have you done on that?
Because I'm just in my brain, it's just kind of like, hey, we don't have that role here. Can you help us, Keisha? And I'm like, I
Yeah,
don't live there,
I don't
so I
know.
can't
I
like
don't even speak
really
your language.
help. Yeah, like how can I help you? Like
Yeah,
the United States of America is a melting pot, right? People look all the same. That's not so in Ireland. You know what I mean? I can't use American speaking people talking about how much they love their job in
in
an
Dublin,
Irish
does not work. Well,
community. We
it'll
don't
piss
have
them
the
off.
accents. Like we don't have the accents. We don't have the culture. We don't have anything that would, appeal to them. And some people hate America. And why do
Say
I
it
want
isn't so. Say it isn't so. This is
some
not
people
true.
hate America and don't want to work for an American company because America's pompous, right? We think that we're
Mm,
better than everybody and,
hmm.
we're just so great. And that is sometimes a turnoff. And so
Oh,
I
big
can't
time.
use my American recruiting methods in a place that hates America. I got to go learn what works over there so that I can work in that culture. Like, you know what I mean? Like I need people who speak that language. I need people
Hmm.
who look like the people surrounding them. There might not be
That's
very
right.
much diversity. We can tout diversity here, but that's not everywhere, right?
Look, that's a perfect segue into the next question. So, because look, I think sometimes, and I've seen this happen. Not that I've been a part of it. In fact, I've had to save a few situations where, oh well, look, we did this great photo shoot with a bunch of employees from around the country. We've got Asian, we've got Latino, we've got Black, we've got disabled. We can use that same imagery in the other countries, and I'm like, oh no, you can't,
You
because
can't.
even in, let's say, if you're going to Beijing, if you're doing a campaign in Beijing, and you use some Chinese American participants in your photo shoot, people in Beijing know American American Chinese and what that looks like. Like, you can't
Exactly.
just you can't just lift and shift these cultural expressions. And so it gets into the conversation about how do you accurately represent culture and the identities of people without being performative, right? That
You have to
that
be
balance
authentic.
between
You got to
token.
care about the people. You know what I mean? You
Yeah,
have
say
to
more.
care. You have
Yeah.
to care about the people.
Well, how do you show that? How do you, as an employer branding practitioner or an organization, how do you keep your organization from going down performative theater rounds, right?
You
And
gotta
keeping
have
them all.
you
Yeah,
gotta
go
have a
ahead. Go ahead.
person of color in the room.
Okay.
You can't just leave it. You know what I mean? You have to have somebody that's gonna call that out. Do you know how many
Okay.
like flubs a lot of these companies have had, and it would not have been if somebody black was in the room that was helping to make these decisions?
Or
Like
female, or Latina,
female,
or
Asian,
disabled.
Latina,
Yeah.
somebody has to
Sure.
be in that room. Like,
Yeah.
don't tell me that you want to hire more Latinx people, but you have no Latinx people behind the efforts to get it done.
Ooh. Look at that. Look at that.
You have to have somebody in the room. You have to. Or else
Yeah.
you just don't care. You just check in a box. We did it. We did it horribly. It wasn't our best effort. but we put it out there. If you want to show people that you care, if you want to be able to transfer, get the people that you're looking for in the room. Let them tell you what resonates with their culture. Let them tell you what kind of words would pop out, right, to people in that culture. Like, you know what I mean? Like, you,
And words to stay away from.
and words
Right?
and words to stay away
Yeah.
from, right?
You need a
It's like
designated driver in these cases, right? So,
the,
because
you
otherwise you
know,
won't know what you don't know.
you set yourself up. I remember a campaign Burt's Bees did.
Bird's Bees, yeah.
Sorry to call y'all out, but they had this campaign where it was like families, right? They had the nuclear family, they had they had the white family, they had a Hispanic family, and then there was the black mom, and she was just there by herself.
Oh, not the
And it
trope.
was like, who
Uh-oh.
was in the room? Where's this child's father? There's more black
Who
people,
approved
black
this
men.
campaign?
Yeah, who it was just a flub that didn't need to be, right? Old Navy when they put the monkey
Oh
on
yeah,
the
on the
little black
sweater.
boy.
Yeah,
Like
yeah.
these are flubs that didn't need the unforced errors was what my husband would say for baseball.
It's a
Unforced
tennis match.
errors.
Yeah.
Like you didn't need to do that. If this is the demographic that you were trying to appeal to, get somebody in that demographic in the room so they can tell you. Because if you had brought that to me, I'd be like, why the black kid gotta have the monkey on? If I'd have been in
Yep.
the room, I'd have been like, where that lady's husband? Like her baby don't have no daddy? Like what is happening? You know what I mean? Like how did baby get
I
here?
do. I
It wasn't
do.
immaculate conception. Like what that baby daddy at? Like, can he be in this picture?
It's look, you're spot on. And
You have to go to them and show that you actually care if that's what you want to bring into your company.
I think that's super important. Also, one of the ways that I've guided clients even who have said, "Hey, look, we've we've tried all of the diversity job boards. We've got great ERGs. We're doing a lot of the right things, but it's just not converting." And I'm saying, well, okay. I think first of all, we need to step back and realize that you're approaching this from a transactional perspective. And that is the quickest way to turn off relational people from anything you're saying.
Because
When it's
you can have all the ERGs in the world, but are they actual community to your employees? Are they actual community to your employees? If somebody in your organization was a part of this ERG and they needed a shoulder to cry on or lean on to talk to somebody else, is the corporate jargon going to get in the middle of it, or are y'all building actual community?
yeah. And are
Are
you
y'all hanging
taking
out?
those insights from those communities and using them to improve the lived experiences for everybody, to
Yeah,
change and improve the structure versus just, hey, you have a space, enjoy that space, right? And we won't
yeah,
do anything with it. Yeah. These are the things of substance that I think, will really come through a brand if they are true. And you said it, authenticity. It has to be true. It can't just feel and look good.
yeah.
Yeah.
I did a campaign. We did a disability campaign. I want to say last year,
Mm-hmm.
and I was interviewing, or I was talking to one of the my colleagues, and I was just she's a wheelchair user. She considers herself she's not she's a wheelchair user,
Okay.
and she said it, even though companies tout that they have accessibility and things like that, they don't think about things because they're not in that person's shoes, right? You can
Sure.
say we're disabled friendly company, right? Because we have a ramp or two, right? But when that person who is a wheelchair user needs to go into the bathroom to wash their hands and the sink sits up here and they can't reach it, are you? Do you
Doesn't feel
care?
too friendly in that moment, I'm sure.
Right? And
Yeah.
when y'all are scheduling team meetings and they have to be in rooms that are not wheelchair accessible to get to, or the door's not wide enough to get the chair into, or you're saying, hey, We're having this one. Does the wheelchair user constantly have to call you out and be like, "Hey, I can't access that building"? Is that your thought process? Like, what's your thought process? We can't use this room because such and such can't get in here.
Yeah.
We need to build sinks that are a little bit lower because such and such can't properly get her hands washed when she's done in the bathroom. Like, you know what I mean? Like, everybody wants to tout, we're number one in da 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 da. But what are your employees who actually have to deal with this? Think about that. And what are you doing as leaders when you get complaints about it,
Yeah.
doing to rectify it, to show your employee that they are valued enough to make these changes to fit? And it makes you feel good when you are talking to somebody and their manager says to them, "I'm sorry, I didn't know this was an issue for you, but I'm going to do everything I can to make this better for you. And if there's red tape behind it, I'm going to make sure that there is no red tape behind it to make sure that you can do this adequately."
That's a great story. That's a great employer brand story. That's a great humanity story. If you can
Are
tell
you
it.
just going to talk it?
If you can tell it. That's the thing, right? It's one thing to craft that story, but is it true? And
Yeah.
I think that's a and I don't want to be conscious of your time because you've been amazingly generous this hour we're talking. There's something to be said about diversity and diversity, equity, inclusion. As tenuous as that landscape is right now, and companies that are actually like walking away from their commitments completely or dissolving those teams, cutting the funding and so forth. But still, even in that compartment, but then in another one, they still want to attract, engage, and retain talent from those communities. So we as employer branders become sort of that bellwether to say, like, look, here's what you can say. Here's what you can actually lean into. And here's what you can't. Because if you do, we are knowingly selling a false narrative. And that's not going to improve your attrition numbers. In fact, it's probably going to do more brand damage down the line than any efforts that you're paying to shape positively right now. So I think that that's a huge message, and I hope people who are listening take that away, especially as practitioners, that we have to be able to showcase to our leadership who our company actually is to the employees that live it every day, so as to not only just say, hey, here's the stories we can tell to sell and attract more people, but here's how you can actually improve your company, right? And leverage those insights. So, Keisha, I've got, oh my gosh, I could talk to you for hours. But in every episode, we have answer a question, leave a question. In which case, I'm going to present to you a question that was provided by our last guest, and that question is: in 10 years, what do you think the evolution of employer brand will be? Pull out your crystal ball.
Honestly, I don't think it's going to be much different from what it is now.
Okay.
Corporate takes a long time. They just move so slowly. It literally is like the best hurry up and wait that you've ever seen, right? It really is. It's like we need to get this done now, 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 now. So you do the work and you get it done now, 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 now. And it's like, oh, you know what? We can actually hold off on this.
Yeah.
I just
Stop
did
and
all the
start.
work for this, right?
Yeah. That's
So
right.
I want to say that it will be a little bit better, but honestly, in 10 years, employer branding is still such a baby to a lot of these corporations. And even still, a lot of corporations don't even know that they need it. So until a lot of people can, and even the ones who know that they need it, want to treat it like a redhead stepchild, right? So like I was told, like, we're not gonna, we know that employer branding is important. We knew recruitment marketing is important, but we're only going to let these four people do it because this department spends money. They don't make the company money.
Oh, the
That's
ugly
what I was
truth.
told.
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
So
yeah.
this is the portion of the business that spends the money, and we don't want to spend too much money doing that. We want to get top talent, but we don't want to spend too much doing that. We want to be in the business of making money, not spending it. And so,
Oof.
because employer branding is such still a baby, right?
Yeah,
Because employer branding, if we're being honest, stemmed from social media.
sure. Social recruitment marketing.
Social
Yeah,
media made employer branding possible, right? Because everybody wants to be seen. Everybody wants their name out there, right? Because that's social media is where branding actually came from, right? When you yourself can be a brand to make money just being yourself, right? You don't have to be anybody. You don't have to be an actress out here where, you have to speak on behalf of somebody else, or you have to transform yourself into somebody else in order to make this money, right? I've seen one woman, she just records her whole entire life. But there are people out there that actually want to watch her live her entire life. My
sure.
kids watch other kids open toys and play with them.
Oh, the unboxings. Yeah,
What are we doing?
whole
Like, why are you
industry
watching this kid play with his toys when you got a whole bunch of toys over here you can play with? Go play with your own toys, right?
blows my
So
mind.
until companies know that they need employer branding, they need recruitment marketing, they need to spend the money to make it effective. And that as long as this generation that's coming up is going to be the largest generation that needs jobs, and that they need to learn how to appeal to them in a recruitment marketing employee branding friendly way, i.e., TikTok, Snapchat, YouTube Shorts, or wherever these kids are, that's where you need to be. It's literally going to still be the same in 10 years. They're still going to be inching their way through. And they're going to take lessons that other companies are taking and go, why couldn't we be the one to do that?
They never want to be the first one to do that, though.
Because they didn't want to
That's
be the
why.
first ones to
Yeah,
do it, right? They
yeah,
want to see
yeah.
somebody else be successful in it so that they can repeat it and go, why can't we get the same success that they've gotten? Because
That's it.
literally the first one to do it wins, right? Everybody else just kind of copies after that.
That's
So
it. You
in
heard it here
10
first.
years,
10
yeah,
years. It's the
I want to be
prediction of
wrong about
the
that
same.
though.
Let's we are here trying our best to make sure it won't be, right?
Yeah,
And we're
I'm going to
doing
be
that
wrong
work.
about that.
Yeah,
But
no
as long
doubt.
as we have a hurry up and wait,
That's
I
what
think
it
that's how
is.
it's going to be.
Okay. All right. Well, I appreciate that. And also in due fashion now, I'd love for you to leave a question for our next guest to answer.
Yeah. My question is going to be what are you doing in your role to make this industry accessible to more people of color?
Okay. I
Cuz this
love
is
it.
a very non-diverse role industry that people just look into. So how do we get more people of color to look into these roles?
Okay. Yeah, look, that is a phenomenal question. I can't wait to hear what our next guest answer is. And I think, there are so few, uh, you know, marginalized people from marginalized communities that are in employer brand roles. We go to the conferences, we find the four of
Yeah.
us or the five of us that are there. But I will say that is changing. I have seen
Love
more
that.
of us coming together, and I think that that will also help to drive change within our industry. So, great question. Great, insightful conversation. Keisha, thank you so much for
Yeah,
joining.
no
It's
problem.
been
Thanks
an
for having
absolute
me.
pleasure. Of course, of course. And hopefully we will have you back.
Oh yeah.
Uh,
Anytime.
but thank you. And I hope everybody watching has enjoyed this as much as I have. So thank you for being a part of Employer Branding Unfiltered. And we will see you soon.